Welcome back to our Path to Profit with Yay, our series of 12 live webinars in 2026. Today is our first one. We're super excited to be here. I'm giving a couple minutes for everyone to join in live. We are broadcasting this live. If you're not able to see it, of course, you can always come back and watch a replay. We're really excited to be here. I want to just to quickly first give a shout out to everyone who have supported us last year, be able to give us all fantastic comments, feedback, and letting us know that we've really been delivering value with every live webinar that we have been producing. So thank you for all your support. It means a lot to us. Please continue to give us thumbs up and share and comment, because that gives us an idea of how many people we're actually reaching and where if we're able to truly deliver a high valuable content. So our really goal to be able to help you to run a successful fashion and retail business. And so we are hoping that we are able to do so as by delivering this type of webinars. But before I get really technical, today we're going to be talking about the assortment architecture for margin lift. So if you are a merchant or if you are a founder of your DTC business and you are responsible for inventory and assortment, this is an absolutely phenomenal webinar for you to be in. So please stay tuned. We're going to uncover quite a great information. But all right, before I get really technical, I do want to reset the room for a moment. We've held a round table at the beginning of the year, which we do host every single month at the first Tuesday of the month at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can find topics on our Yay Designs website, as well as on our Yay Designs LinkedIn page. This is where we publish all of our events that are upcoming with all of the themes and what we will be talking about. But in the roundtable, we've spent a lot of time really diagnosing why private label pressure shows up the way it does, which really what revealed is the slower terms, margin compressions, inventory drag that does not make sense really on paper, but we see them when we actually start to implementing. And what we are doing is going to be different now that we're pivoting to really talk about the assortment piece and how that could play out, whether you're doing your private label or whether you're running your own brand. This is going to become very relevant to you. So do please stay tuned. I would love to go through this with you today. And this is really going to be about how the problems get designed in and how to design them out. I want to be very clear about something up front. For most retailers do not have a margin problem. They have an assortment design problem. Margin rarely dies at the negotiation table. It really starts to die out much earlier when the assortments are built without economic intent. I mean, just think about it. We often put so much pressure on our teams and ourselves thinking about the margins, right? Thinking about the how much we need to go and negotiate with the vendors, but we often don't really look at how our assortment is actually structured. How is our assortment is actually built? Is it actually optimized for us to be able to set ourselves for success and long term actually drive the productivity of that assortment up? So this section is really about not about what's trending or what you should be adding into your assortment. It's really going to be about the high performing teams architect how they architect their assortments that can survive vitality and still lift the profit. If a private label or optimizing and growing an existing brand, this is a part of your growth strategy. This is where the real leverage lives. But before I kind of dive in more deeper, let me introduce myself to those that are new to our Path to Profit with Yay series. My name is Yay, or my full name is Evgenia Alexandrovna Yushkova, or simply you can call me Yay. And I'm a fashion and retail business consultant, and I work with small but very senior teams We work with founders, we work directly with business owners, and as well as the C-level executives of bigger organizations in retail and D2C space. Between us, between me and some of our consultants in our group, we have over 80 years of combined experience building private label programs from ground up. And what we really specialize in specifically is we help retailers design and integrate private label inside the existing operations. We look at merchandising, sourcing, planning, financials, operations, systems. We are addressing it from the end to end. And without forcing the business to pause, to restructure, or overstretch those teams. What makes our approach unique and different from most consulting agencies is that we don't come in with the generic best practices or the surface level fixes. We do not treat the symptoms. We go directly to the foundation, to the core. We look at the data analysis. We look at your supply chain. We look at your operational model. We look at your system mapping. We analyze your data as a foundation of your assortment logic. And then we optimize what actually drives margin and cash. We'll look at it as an end-to-end solution approach versus trying to treat one symptom. We've sat on both sides of the table. We've sat on manufacturing and retail side throughout our experience. And we've built over dozens of multi-million-dollar private label brands for large-scale retailers from ground up on a lean budget. And that's what we're really known for. We also work with some of our mid to smaller size brands and help them optimize and grow. But what we really are known for is private label and how to build the private label and integrate that seamlessly into your operations for a retailer. So what we bring into the table today is not going to be a theory. It is operational points to view based on proven success among our clients. Let's start with white space mapping, because this is where most teams go wrong first. White space is not about new ideas or based on a feeling that the merchandising or buying team might have. It also is not about finding the next exciting product. White space is really about profitable gaps, not a creative ones. When I look at many private label or manufacturing brands' assortments, I see the same pattern over and over. They're crowded with risk where it's high. And then they're thin where really the reliability lives, which is backwards from what the successful optimized brands are doing. Often when we question the teams, they often reply with, well, we must continue to expand choices for our customers. We got to give them the variety. But when they are actually doing is that they're spreading the capital across the SKUs that are all complete for the same demand, and they're all competing for the same demand, and they're creating too much noise for the customer and giving them too many or choices versus and choices, which then actually drives the sales down and profitability and conversion. So one of those things is going to be very incredibly important to change your mind shift of your team or yourself if that's exactly what you're still thinking, that assortment is all about giving as much variety as possible. When we help them to do the white space mapping with the forecast with the teams, what we really look at is to asking them to ask themselves a really hard questions. What are the customers already buying but not fully served by your current offer, as an example? Or maybe you're not doing enough of while they actually want coming in, and that's what's driving 80% of your sales. You know, where do the price tiers exist without a clear value story? And which categories could scale profitably if complexity were reduced instead of expanded? And here is the uncomfortable truth that we really often have to say. is if your assortment expansion is driven by the inspiration instead of economic intent, your margin erosion is already breaking in before the season even starts. So, one, Mary, thank you for asking the question. I really appreciate you. She's asking, well, we already analyze sales data pretty heavily. How is it different from the standard category analysis? It's a great question, Mary. Thank you for asking it. And this is where the distribution really matters. Most sales analysis looks backwards, where white space mapping looks at the future behavior under pressure. A category can sell well and still be structurally weak. Where we're looking for it's not what sold, but what we're looking for is really what observed the forecast arrows, what holds margin without breaking down dependencies, and what scales without adding the complexity. If you do not evaluate the categories through that lens and just purely looking at sales data of what sold and did not, you end up growing the wrong parts of the business very successfully, but it's what going to then deteriorate your margin over time. Let's talk about the SKU realization, because this is where teams usually get nervous. Most retailers rationalize SKUs reactively after margin is already under pressure, after inventory already feels heavy, and after leadership asks uncomfortable questions. While the high performing merchandising teams do the opposite, they rationalize before growth exposure weakens. And let me also say this really clearly that the SKU count is not the enemy. It's the unclear SKU roles, which is what drives your profitability down. Every SKU in a resilient assortment has a particular job. Some SKUs are there to drive volume. Some exist to anchor price perception. And some observe demand vitality. Some test behavior without risking the season. If the SKUs can clearly answer what role it plays, what margin behavior it expected to deliver, how much vitality it can tolerate, it's not a strategic way to build or optimize your assortment. What you might be creating is an assortment that drives noise, reflecting in a long tail that is just eating up focus of your team and adds extra layer of unnecessary stress to manage it. And here's the part people don't like to hear when we challenge them on the health of their existing assortment. We always say define what 20% drives 80% of your sales and profitability, and chop off the long tail that potentially exists in your assortment. We have not seen even one assortment that we have analyzed that did not have a long tail. This happens, and it's most likely happening with you and your assortment as well. If by cutting the SKU scares your team, it's often because growth has been compensating for structural inefficiency. That works until it doesn't. We often are asked, how do we cut SKUs without hurting revenue, especially when the leadership is growth focused and they're pushing us to create more variety, to grow more SKUs, grow our assortment, bring more SKUs. And we often hear that pressure from a leadership coming from the top. This is where the framing really matters, where you start to think about not cutting the SKUs to reduce revenue. You're really cutting the SKUs to increase margin durability and do not significantly contribute to the sales volume. In fact, they might be creating noise that's confusing to the customer, which is most likely actually weakens the sales and weakens and brings down your conversion because the customer is confused or not, they're not able to make a choice between too many or choices versus and choices in your assortment. What usually happens after a proper rationalization is that your forecast accuracy improves, your core SKUs better supporting your actual revenue goals, your inventory turns accelerates, and your revenue stabilizes faster than you actually will expect it. If revenue drops sharply after rationalization, that usually is a signal that growth was fragile to begin with. Not that the decision was a wrong decision to make. Now let's talk about the vendors, because this is where the most really thinking about the negotiation is what's going to increase their profitability. But if you want really rely solely on a negotiation on a SKU level to fight for a higher margin, that you are not going to be able to be more profitable. Vendor leverage does not come from asking for a better price over and over again, squeezing them for every penny. It comes from a designing assortment and suppliers that want to support you. And when we talk about the long tail that we are often suggest to chop off, it's also going to help you is to actually reduce the amount of suppliers that you are potentially buying from or working with, and refocus and build meaningful programs with the key suppliers that are actually contributing to your 80% of revenue. Right, going to apply that 80-20 rule. I mean, look at your supplier list and their performance by SKU level and sales, and see which ones of those are actually contributing to your revenue. The rest of them are just noise, and they're eating away from resources of your team to manage them, to work with them. It's very challenging. Hi, Dr. Mario. Great to see you. Thank you for watching. We're really excited to join you for you joined us. And when every SKU is treated the same, suppliers cannot really optimize for you. They cannot be constantly giving you better and better pricing just because you are not treating or optimizing your own assortment in the way that can be able to actually help you to become more profitable. They don't really know which product matters. You know that. And they don't know where the flexibility really pays. They don't know where the efficiency matters the most. So they protect themselves while your margin leaks quietly. High performing retailer segment SKUs by role. They defined which ones are their core items, SKUs, which ones are their chase items, which ones are their test items, and which ones are the margin drivers. Once you add on that layer of rationalization of your assortment, you're now looking at your assortment from a very different lens. And they align suppliers accordingly to that. Different suppliers do different jobs. Some will be responsible for the margin, and they will be driving, and because they are working on your margin driving product that is your part of your core, and it's all about efficiency and price. Some would be actually agile enough to help you do the testing and chase to be able to define those new nuggets that you can then potentially transition it to your core. And some, which potentially could be a hybrid model of the agile manufacturing where you could do produce to closer to time so that you have an opportunity to chase, while others could be able to place where you place the bulk orders with to really maximize your profitability. And that's what becomes more of an intentional way of leveraging your suppliers. If you expect every supplier to do faster, cheaper, and more flexible job, at the same time, you're really not managing your vendors. You're really just putting pressure on your suppliers, which one will always give. So define your suppliers, which are suppliers you're going to be your fastest, the agile suppliers, and assign them to your chase and test. Which ones have the better pricing, which then that could be your margin driver suppliers for your product that has margin drivers. and who are potentially more flexible and fluid, that you could be able to transition from agile to bulk. And that could be what you potentially might want to assign for your core. But you want to remove the noise and all the different other suppliers that you do either one-offs or continuously to chase that tail, because it is taking time and away of your resources. It's actually draining your bottom line operational costs and your bottom line profitability. And you are potentially also creating a friction if you are constantly expecting each supplier to be faster, cheaper, and more flexible at the same time. Also, going back to the tail of the assortment, it usually comes with many suppliers that you buy or produce with a potentially couple of sporadic styles instead of focusing on suppliers with which you're building programs that can grow scale over time. Usually, when you do clean up that tail end in the assortment, you're able to also identify and potentially reduce the number of suppliers that retailer manages on a daily basis, or your team manages on a daily basis. We often able to actually reduce the number of suppliers between 30 to 40%. I mean, that's huge. That's just how much you were able to relieve the pressure and give to your team time and resources to focus on what really matters for your business, which not only reduces the pressure, but also frees up the time of the buyers to refocus on the suppliers that matter and build programs. It also helps to reduce operational costs on the bottom line, like I've mentioned earlier. Paul, thank you for asking this question. What if we don't have enough volume to segment suppliers yet by those type of categories? Paul, great question, and I'm sure there are many of smaller brands who are listening to this who potentially might either not be in the business enough long enough yet, or maybe they don't have that volume of the suppliers just yet. Then segmentation will matter actually even more. When volume is limited, every decision carries more risk. So you have to be more strategic about which suppliers you actually want to work with and which suppliers are going to do which job for your assortment. Clear SKU role allows you to really concentrate volume where it creates the leverage, instead of spreading it thin across too many styles or too many suppliers or having too many assumptions. You don't need to scale to design intelligently. You really need is clarity and understanding where everything is. So now that we're kind of coming up to the top of our hour, really, I would like to summarize what we have availed today and what we've talked about today. That assortment architecture is not about adding product. It's about designing economic behavior into your system, into your current process, into your current team's behavior and beliefs. It's to promote the culture of thinking beyond what's visible and actually dive in to be able to dissect your assortment by a very critical roles, understanding what piece, what SKU, what category, what product class is actually defining what actually going to drive your core, what is going to be your chase, what is going to be your test, and how you're going to test it. Also thinking about how that layers in with your supply chain. If you're still in the mode where you're testing, and by testing you're actually putting bulk POs and then hoping it will sell, then you are really need to look at the lens and see if there is a transformation of your supply chain that needs to happen. You need to have suppliers that could be able to do an agile manufacturing that could potentially do smaller runs and be able to fulfill from the order to the time it actually gets to your customer or your doors within 2 to 3, 4 weeks. So you can truly chase those tests and not miss out on a whole season, but at the same time not be stuck with lots of inventory that potentially needs to go into your markdowns, and then it drives your profitability down again. Phenomenal. One of the great solutions and our partner is Patchwork, where you can actually go on and find them on getpatch.work and actually see what they can do for you. I mean, they're phenomenal at really taking your assortment and be able to deliver it as little as 50 units across all the different styles and sizes, and they can deliver it within 3 to 4 weeks when it's already landing to your customer. I mean, just think about it. It's a game changer. And then on top of it, they come with predictive analytics of your sales, and they can be able to help you to actually produce to demand of your sales. So your demand grows, you're going to produce more. If demand slows down, you're going to produce less. But then it allows you not to be stuck with all that inventory, especially at the chasing and the testing mode. And when it's done correctly, this works to do uplift your profitability. It lifts profit without really relying on those markdowns, right? It reduces the markdowns. It reduces that excess inventory that you then have to liquidate or get rid of. It improves the supplier relationships without renegotiating drama and constantly squeezing them and making them feel like that they have to constantly fight for every penny. And when you negotiate, you also want to negotiate strategically. Don't try to negotiate for every little thing, right? Let the suppliers win on some. And maybe those are the ones that you could potentially increase some of your, maybe that's your best product, or you can have a little bit more increase in the pricing so that you can adjust it. While your margin drivers, yes, those we have to squeeze, those we have to get low as possible. But when you give the supplier a hybrid, it allows you to do this type of work. It allows you to be able to build those programs and be clear with the supplier what each SKU does, so that they could be able to bring their costing lower on the things that really truly matter for your business. Mary, thank you for asking a question. Does the patchwork help me find the suppliers that could help me? I currently struggle with finding the credible suppliers. Yes, so the definitely, and we will drop the link in the comments below. And we also, by the way, will drop a link to our roundtable so that if you have missed it, I do highly recommend to go back and listen to that one as well. It will really connect the dots between our conversation today and what we've spoken at the beginning of the month. But to your point, when you reach out to Patchwork, you can mention Yay, and that my referral to that I referred you guys to them. They will work with you. They have their own network of suppliers that are reliable, and they will work with you to be able to develop the styles that you want to transition into their program. And then from there, they will integrate with your Shopify store or with your system so that they could be able to see real-time data sales to be able to help you predict and demand. And you're set and golden to go. But this is one off. There are definitely others out there that's doing something similar, but this one's the ones that I highly personally recommend. They're truly phenomenal. They've saved lots of thousands of dollars to a lot of our clients and been able to actually help them to transition from a regular push type of a supply chain into a hybrid of pull and push, depending on where the roles of each SKUs is. And the goal is here to really not to be perfectionist, but to build a realistic, optimized assortment that helps you to scale up and maximize the profitability at the bottom line. I really hope that it sparked up some of the ideas and that you will leave you with some of the questions that really matters. And I really hope that your team is potentially are asking those questions, or you asking those team for a question, and they can be able to give you the answers. And if they can't, definitely let us know. We'll be gladly to help to navigate this. And the questions really are, is your assortment ready? And has a structure assortment plan? Do you have an assortment plan that really identifies what is the core, what is the chase, what is the test? Do you have a clear SKU roles tied to the margin behavior? A rationalized line that really observes the vitality, and the vendor strategy that supports margin uplift instead of really eroding it. If the answers are yes, then you are ready to scale. If the answers are not, or maybe, or we don't know, this is the time to go and after. This is the time to dive deeper into your data, into your suppliers, and figure it out what each role of your SKU actually matters before you add new SKUs, before you expand your assortment. And if the assortment can't protect profit under the pressure, it's not ready to scale. And the good news is that this whole process is entirely flexible when it's addressed early and intentionally. Not when you're trying to treat the symptom after fact, but to actually de-risk your assortment ahead of time during the beginning of the season as you're planning in your next assortments. A lot of us are starting to plan our next assortments already. This is the time for us to have these conversations. And Nick, our next path to profit is going to cover a topic that's really directly tie in with what we are currently are talking about. We're going to talk about the open to buy and gross margin ROI, and then we're actually going to go through how to build it. We're going to go through how to build it live, how to build your buying plan. And you can use now this, and please add this to your calendar. It's going to happen on February 19th at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. You can register on a link at our events link. We will put the link below in the comments as well, that you could register for it. This would be a great stepping stone from our conversation today. And what we will cover is how to create an open to buy from scratch and give you a simple model that you can reuse every season. We're going to separate priority buys versus risk buys so that you can protect cash while still chasing winners. And we're going to set a seasonal open to buy rules that keep you disciplined when the sales spike, shipment slips, or the market changes. And we're going to learn of what open to buy really should be versus what often is how it's treated in a retail environment. And if you don't have an open to buy yet, or you are retailing your product, even if it's your own brand, this is definitely would be a great conversation for you to join. And if you find this content valuable, please give us thumbs up and share so we know that we're continuing and that we're continuing to drive value. And if you have any questions, please share them, share any of your ideas, or if you have any topics that you want us to cover, please put it in comments below, whether you are watching this live or whether you are going to watch this as a replay on any of the channels. We do read your comments, we do receive them, we do respond to them, and we would really love to be here to continue to support you. We love to hear from you, and your feedback helps us to really learn and improve. So we really welcome it, and we really encourage you to please do so. I will see you guys next time. Thank you very much for the time and support. And I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar on February 19th. And some of you, I hope, will join us on our roundtable that is going to be hosted on the first Tuesday of every month at 10:30. Thank you very much. I will talk to you guys soon.